There is a memory you have that you are absolutely certain about. You can see it clearly. You remember where you were, what you were wearing, who was with you, what was said, how the light looked in the room. The emotional weight of the moment is still present when you recall it decades later. You would stake your life on the accuracy of what you remember. The research suggests you shouldn't, not because you're careless or dishonest or unusual in any way, but because the science of emotional memory has revealed something that cuts to the heart of how you understand your own past, your own identity, and your own reliability as a witness to your own life. The memories you're most confident about, the ones that feel most vivid, most certain, most real, are not necessarily more accurate than the memories you hold more loosely. In fact, in some specific and important ways, the memories that carry the most emotional charge are the most likely to be systematically distorted in specific predictable directions. This is not a comfortable finding. It is, however, one of the most important findings in all of memory science, and understanding it properly may be one of the most practically significant things you can learn about how your own mind works. Let's begin with what actually happens in the brain when an emotionally significant event occurs. The key structure is the amygdala, a small almond-shaped region deep in the brain that processes emotional significance and triggers the stress response. When something important happens, something your nervous system registers as significant, threatening, exciting, or deeply meaningful, the amygdala activates. It sends signals throughout the brain that modulate how the event is encoded in memory. Specifically, it triggers the release of stress hormones including norepinephrine and cortisol, which enhance the consolidation of memories in the hippocampus, the brain structure most directly responsible for forming new long-term memories. This relationship between emotional arousal and memory consolidation is real and well established. It is why you probably remember where you were when you heard about major traumatic events, why you remember your most embarrassing moments in excruciating detail, why the first time you fell in love or experienced a devastating loss is encoded with a richness and depth that ordinary Tuesday afternoons never achieve. The amygdala, in effect, stamps certain memories with a signal that tells the rest of the brain, this matters, remember it. This mechanism makes obvious evolutionary sense. The most important things that happen to you, the threats, the losses, the significant social events, the moments of profound meaning, are exactly the things you most need to remember accurately for future decisions and behavior. The system that prioritizes emotional events for memory consolidation was selected for because it is adaptive. In a world where the dangerous berry and the safe one look similar, you need to remember with precision which one nearly killed you. But here is where the story becomes more complicated and more important. While emotional arousal enhances certain aspects of memory, it simultaneously impairs others, and the aspects it impairs are precisely the ones that matter most for accuracy. Research by Elizabeth Loftus, one of the most influential memory scientists of the 20th century, and by many others who followed her, has established a consistent finding. Emotional arousal tends to narrow attention at the moment of encoding. When something frightening or exciting or significant happens, the brain's attentional resources are concentrated intensely on the central features of the experience, the emotionally significant core of what is happening, at the expense of peripheral details. You see what matters most with unusual clarity. You fail to register what surrounds it. This phenomenon has been extensively documented in eyewitness memory research as the weapon focus effect. When a person witnesses a crime involving a weapon, their attention is drawn powerfully to the weapon itself. They encode the weapon with exceptional clarity and detail. They are significantly worse at encoding the face of the person holding it, the clothing they were wearing, the surrounding environment, and other details that turn out to matter enormously for identification and prosecution. The same mechanism operates in non-criminal emotional memories. When you remember the moment of a significant emotional experience, what you remember with the greatest clarity and confidence is the emotional core, the feeling itself, the central dramatic element. The surrounding context, the sequence of events, the specific words that were said, the precise timing, all of this is encoded far more poorly than the emotional intensity leads you to believe. Your confidence in the memory is calibrated to the emotional weight of the experience. Your accuracy is calibrated to something quite different. And then there is the process of memory reconsolidation, which transforms the picture entirely. For much of the 20th century, the dominant understanding of memory was what researchers call the storage model. A memory was formed, encoded in the brain in some stable neural substrate, and then retrieved when needed, like a file being pulled from a cabinet. The strength of the storage determined the quality of the retrieval. Old memories might decay, but the process was essentially one of storage and retrieval, with distortion entering only at the encoding stage or through gradual degradation over time. This model is wrong. Or rather, it is incomplete in ways that fundamentally change what memory actually is. The key discovery was the phenomenon of reconsolidation. Every time a memory is retrieved, recalled, brought into conscious awareness, it enters a temporary state of instability. The neural connections that constitute the memory briefly become malleable, susceptible to modification, and during this window, the memory can be altered by current experiences, current knowledge, current emotional states, and current expectations before it is restored. This restorage process is called reconsolidation, and it means that every time you remember something, you are not simply reading a file, you are rewriting it. The implications of this are profound. Your emotional memories have not been sitting in your brain unchanged since the moment they were formed. Every time you have recalled them, you have altered them, subtly or significantly, based on your emotional state at the time of recall. What you knew then that you didn't know at the moment of the original event, what had happened in between, what you needed the memory to mean for the story you were telling about yourself. The memory you have today of a significant emotional event is not the memory you formed at the time. It is a reconstruction that has been rebuilt, revised, and restored dozens or hundreds of times, each time incorporating the perspective and knowledge of a different moment in your life. This is not a flaw in an otherwise well-functioning system. It is, in important ways, a feature, the ability to update memories in light of new information, to integrate new knowledge with existing experience is cognitively valuable. A memory system that was entirely fixed and immutable would be less useful than one that can incorporate new understanding. The problem is that the same malleability that allows healthy updating also allows distortion, and the distortions are systematic and predictable in ways that matter. Research by Daniel Kahneman and his colleagues on what he called the peak end rule has revealed one of the most consistent and important patterns in how emotional experiences are remembered. The intensity of an emotional experience is not remembered as an average of how it felt across its duration. It is remembered primarily as a function of two specific moments: the peak, the most intense moment of the experience, whether positive or negative, and the ending. The duration of the experience has almost no effect on how it is remembered. A longer version of an unpleasant experience that ends well is remembered more positively than a shorter version that ends badly, even if the longer version involved more total suffering. Kahneman's famous colonoscopy study demonstrated this with uncomfortable precision. Patients who underwent longer colonoscopies that ended with a period of milder discomfort reported significantly less pain in retrospect than patients who underwent shorter procedures that ended at a moment of peak discomfort, despite the longer procedure involving more total discomfort. The ending dominated the memory. The duration was essentially irrelevant to retrospective evaluation. This has implications that extend far beyond colonoscopies. It means that your memories of emotional experiences, relationships, events, and periods of your life are systematically biased toward their peaks and their endings at the expense of everything in between. A relationship that was mostly positive but ended badly will be remembered more negatively than it was experienced. A difficult period that ended with resolution will be remembered more positively than the experience warranted. Your emotional memory is not a faithful record of how you lived. It is a highly selective narrative shaped by the peaks and the endings. There is a particular category of emotional memory that deserves special attention, and it has been the subject of extensive research since the assassination of President Kennedy in 1963. The psychologist Roger Brown and his colleague James Kulik coined the term flashbulb memory in 1977 to describe the phenomenon of vivid, detailed, seemingly permanent memories of the moment when one learned about a shocking or emotionally significant public event. The memories felt to those who had them like photographs, frozen and permanent records of an extraordinary moment. They felt different in kind from ordinary memories, more certain, more detailed, more reliable. But when researchers began systematically studying flashbulb memories, testing people's accounts of where they were and what they were doing when they learned about significant events, and then testing those same people again months and years later, something striking emerged. The memories changed substantially over time, in some cases dramatically. Details that people had reported with high confidence were different years later. Specific facts that had felt absolutely certain were wrong. And crucially, the confidence with which people held their memories did not decrease as the memories became less accurate. People remained highly confident in memories that were substantially incorrect. Ulric Neisser and Nicole Harsch conducted one of the most important studies of this phenomenon in the aftermath of the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion in 1986. They collected accounts from students the day after the explosion, asking them where they were, who told them, and what they were doing at the moment they heard. 2.5 years later, they collected the same accounts from the same students. Approximately a quarter of the accounts had changed substantially in every specific detail. More than half had changed in significant ways. Yet the students rated their confidence in the later accounts as just as high as their confidence in the immediate accounts. One student, shown her original account from the day after the explosion, looked at her own handwriting in her own words and said, "That doesn't seem right to me." This is the core of what makes emotional memory science so important and so unsettling. The very features that make emotional memories feel different from ordinary memories, the vividness, the certainty, the sense of photographic permanence, are not reliable indicators of accuracy. They are indicators of emotional significance. And emotional significance and accuracy, it turns out, are not the same thing and are not even reliably correlated. Why does this happen? There are several mechanisms. The first is source monitoring errors. When a memory is retrieved and reconsolidated, it may incorporate information from other sources without tagging that information as external. Details heard in conversations about the event, details read about it afterward, details suggested by other people's accounts can all be incorporated into the personal memory without the person realizing the source. The memory feels entirely their own because by the time of retrieval, it is neurologically represented as their own. The second is the misinformation effect, documented extensively by Elizabeth Loftus. When people are exposed to misleading information after an event, that information can be incorporated into their memory of the event. In classic experiments, participants who witnessed a car accident and were then asked questions containing misleading details, such as questions that presupposed the presence of a stop sign that wasn't there, later remembered the stop sign as having been there. The misleading question didn't just change what they reported, it changed what they remembered. The third mechanism is the consistency bias. When a memory is reconstructed, it is shaped by current beliefs and current self-concept in ways that make the remembered past more consistent with the present than it actually was. If you now believe you have always been a cautious person, you will tend to remember past decisions as more cautious than they were. If you now believe a past relationship was unhealthy, you will tend to remember early warning signs you may have ignored or not perceived at the time as having been obvious. The present rewrites the past to tell a coherent story. These mechanisms operate most powerfully precisely in the domain of emotionally significant memories, because emotional significance drives more frequent retrieval, and each retrieval provides another opportunity for reconsolidation and distortion. Your most emotionally important memories are the ones you have recalled most often, and they are therefore the ones that have been reconsolidated and potentially revised the most times. There is a specific context in which the science of emotional memory has the most direct practical implications, and that is eyewitness testimony. The justice system has historically treated eyewitness testimony, particularly from witnesses who experienced significant emotional trauma during the event, as among the most reliable forms of evidence. The emotional intensity of the experience was taken as a marker of accuracy. The confidence of the witness was taken as a marker of reliability. The research has comprehensively dismantled both of these assumptions. Study after study has shown that emotional arousal at encoding does not improve the accuracy of peripheral details that are often crucial for identification. That confidence is not correlated with accuracy. That the very certainty a witness feels about a high emotion memory is no guarantee that the memory is correct. The Innocence Project, which has used DNA evidence to exonerate people wrongfully convicted of serious crimes, has found that eyewitness misidentification, often by witnesses who were highly emotional and highly confident, is the single most common contributing factor in wrongful convictions, involved in approximately 70% of cases. So what should you take from all of this? The first implication is epistemic humility about your own past. The vivid, certain memories you carry of significant emotional events are real, in the sense that they represent genuine neural reconstructions of meaningful experiences. But they are not recordings. They have been revised, selectively reinforced, and shaped by the perspective of every moment in which you have recalled them. The story you tell about your own past is a construction, not a retrieval, and it has been built and rebuilt over time by a mind that has been trying to make sense of experience, not simply record it. The second implication concerns relationships. Many of the most painful conflicts between people who share a history involve genuinely incompatible memories of the same events. Each person remembers clearly and with great certainty something that the other person remembers differently. The research suggests that in many such cases, neither person is lying, and neither person is simply wrong in a simple sense. They are both reporting their genuine reconstruction of events that were encoded under high emotional arousal, reconsolidated many times, and shaped by everything that has happened since. The conflict is not necessarily between honest memory and dishonest memory. It may be between two different honest reconstructions of the same event. The third implication is perhaps the most important and the most counterintuitive. The fact that your emotional memories are reconstructive does not make them meaningless. The meaning you have derived from your experiences, the lessons you have drawn from them, the identity you have built partly on the foundation of how you understand your own history. None of this is invalidated by the fact that the specific details of your memories may be imperfect. What the research suggests is not that your past didn't matter or didn't happen. It suggests that the version of the past that lives in you is something you have partially authored, not simply received. And that authorship, that ongoing reconstruction of personal history, is one of the most distinctively human things about you. You are not simply the product of what happened to you, you are partly the product of how you have remembered it. And memory, it turns out, is not a record. It is an ongoing act of creation. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. If you find this video interesting, please consider subscribing for more content like this.